So James bought that business off of Terry at 13 clients. Probably been there now for about 2.5+ years. So he bought Dalesford and Trentham. James has already sold a split with about 40 clients in Trentham, and Ash had bought that probably 6 months ago, and he's doing really well. James has still got 120 clients, and he's looking to sell another split in Dalesford.
So welcome to another edition of the Jim's Group and Jim's Mowing podcast as well. Very lucky to have Matt Watts in here today. So if you don't know Matt, I'll give you a bit of a background about Matt. I've known Matt for a long time. Worked at head office, become a regional franchisor, absolutely smashed it in his region in terms of growing it and supporting the franchisees. Done a great job, and due to that, is now doing the mowing divisional role. So basically, Jim's mowing division, who do franchisors and franchisees go to if there's problems? Matt's the person they go to, and he solves them as well. So great to have you in today, Matt. Thanks for coming in.
Joel, absolutely appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Now, real quickly, just before we get into the whole Jim's mowing side of what you do, prior to Jim's mowing, what were you doing? So just talk about your business experience.
Just before or holistically?
Well, just give us a bit of an overview, because you've worked in really good corporate roles. So what I'm trying to get to people is people, when they engage with gyms, you're dealing with guys who've got massively good experience and business experience. I just want to try and give people a bit of a sense of what you've done.
Probably around a 20-year career in corporate, what we call corporate retail. So I worked for companies like Coles, Shell, Kathmandu, Caltex, short time with United, but effectively started as a store manager many years ago now. Unfortunately, with Shell, sort of managing one store. Started out as casual actually at Shell, then managing one store, 2 stores, 3 stores, night area manager, zone manager with Shell in Victoria. I then took an opportunity to move to Western Australia for 3 years, and I took over as a zone manager or state manager for Western Australia and Northern Territory. Everyone there reported up to myself. Great, wonderful offer. Anyone who hasn't lived in Perth, I'll tell you, funnily enough, I just spent the weekend in Perth with my partner. I spent the first 12 months living in West Perth.
Yes.
And then the final 2 years living in Scarborough.
Very nice.
So we just literally spent the weekend in Scarborough last weekend. I got back last night, and it's changed a lot in 19 odd years. So 2004, 5, 6, I was over there. Came back to, wanted to come back to Victoria, so came back as a regional manager with Coles, was there for about 3.5 years. I had a short stint with a discount company, then went to Kathmandu as national manager for Kathmandu, and was general manager at Kathmandu for 3.5 years, so about 4.5 years all up with Kathmandu. Went to an apparel company as head of retail. A few different things, worked my way through to sort of like a zone general manager with Caltex. A little bit was going on back in Melbourne on a personal level, so I came back to Melbourne and took up a role of general manager in sales with Jim's Group. So I worked with Jim for a couple of years as his right-hand man, and that's how we met. And then took on a role back in April of 2021 as regional franchisor for Western Victoria in the mowing division.
So extensive history. That's why I want to ask that, because it's a lot of people that don't know the franchisor story, but you've got somebody who used to run Kathmandu pretty much, which is a massive brand as well. So you get access to people like yourself and a lot of the other franchisors with similar experience. So Western region, you took it over, and you did a lot of work in the Western region. So the Jim's Mowing Western region at the time was probably undersold, probably the support wasn't there, and you came in and you basically had to just rebuild it. So do you want to talk real quickly about how you rebuilt it and how you went about improving culture and things like that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess the region's built on relationships, communication, honesty, integrity. If I bring on a new franchisee, I guess if I gave you 20 phone numbers now of franchisees that have come on in the last couple of years, I would pride myself on the fact that they would say that it has worked out pretty much exactly how I said to them it was going to work out. So we're all honest about openness, honesty, integrity. Franchisees are hungry, they're motivated, they're proactive, they chase their own work. I support them where I can with getting them additional work as well. They communicate well as a group. Most new franchisees get a mentor in place on top of myself, will be a local mentor to make sure they support them. I spend a lot of money on a yearly basis just getting out on the road and spending time, whether it's in Mildura or Warrnambool. Or
you do a lot of Ks.
I do a lot of Ks. I've got a 4-year-old Navara and not even 4. How many Ks
have done?
Probably 3.5-year-old Navara, and it's going to be 170,000 K, something like that. So yeah, it's getting up there already. So it's got a year and a half to go on its lease, but it's touch wood. Haven't had too many problems with the Navara for those guys looking for a new car. So and just build on relationships. So I talk to my guys as much as I possibly can. If they call, they know I'm there 7 days a week. I get back to them as quickly as I can. If I can't answer the phone, I always say when I'm leaving a message, give me a call back. If I can't answer your call, I promise I'll call you back.
Because you do a lot of face-to-face. Now, people will be going, in the days of Zoom, why wouldn't you just do Zoom? So why do you do so much face-to-face?
I think, like I said, it's just about building. The one-on-one stuff's important. So, for instance, like, early spring, I'll try and have a meeting, say, in Ballarat with the guys in Ballarat or down in Bendigo. And I think just giving back, I think is important. And some people might go, well, it's going to cost you $700-800 for a dinner. But at the end of the day, I think that camaraderie, and as much as I'd like to think it's about myself, it's not. Getting all the franchisees together in a room, say from a Bendigo or a Ballarat, I think is actually really important.
Yeah.
My partner, Christy, comes along where she can, which is great. So she's helping me out now in the business as well. But yeah, having that face-to-face time with myself and the franchisees is important, but also just getting the franchisees in a room together over a beer, I think is super important.
And how do you set up your new guys for success? So you said about, if you called all your guys, they'd say, yeah, it's exactly what you told me at the start. So what are you sort of telling the prospects to expect, and how do you coach them at the start?
I think the first thing is that, I don't take just anybody. To be honest, like, we've knocked back people in Mildura, I've knocked back people in Warrnambool this year, who have wanted to come on as franchisees, and I've just said no because I don't think they're the right fit for the brand or for my group. So I think selection is important in my region.
Which is great to hear, because a lot of people aren't like that. So do you want to, especially outside of gyms, so selection. What do you look for, and what are the red flags, and maybe what are the green flags then as well?
I think culturally is the important one. So I always get franchisees to go out and do prospects, I should say, to go out and do an observation day with franchisees or franchisees.
Yeah.
In any particular area, I've got a great relationship with all my franchisees, but there's senior guys in each area, be it Ballarat or Shepparton or Bendigo, Warrnambool, Mildura, where I've got absolute trust in the people that I put them out on the road with. So if those people come back to me and say, from a cultural perspective, they don't think they'd be the right fit, or they haven't got their head around sort of Jim's Mowing or what it's going to take to run their own business. There are people out there who would be wonderful employees, but they're not necessarily built to run their own business.
Awesome.
So they'd be the two major factors: is one, are they built to run their own business, and two, culturally, because in places like, say, Warrnambool, I might have 7 or 8 franchisees. So if I put someone down there who's not a good cultural fit, that's problematic, and vice versa. In Ballarat and Bendigo, you're talking 16 to 17 franchisees, roughly, off the top of my head. So again, if you put someone in there who's not a good cultural fit, that's problematic.
And with your new guys, you said about expectations, and you tell them from at the start what to expect. So what are you sort of telling me? You're sort of saying you expect to earn this much, or if you work this hard, you can earn this much, or what do you sort of say at the start?
Yes, look, I quote Jim's in my marketing that I do to new franchisees. Jim's done a survey before, and I use $140,000 as a guide. But at the end of the day, I always tell people it can be as big as you want it to be. So it's very different. People have asked me about what do I like about being a franchisor rather than an employee for Jim. And there's 2 things that really resonate with me. And one is the harder you work, the more money you make. And that's no different for me or a franchisee. I've already got a meeting booked this Saturday to go to Bendigo. So that's a 2-hour drive each way on Saturday to meet with some of my franchisees and also a potential gentleman about buying out a large resale in Bendigo. Now, I don't have to do that, but I'm choosing to spend my Saturday to do that because it's in my interest, but it's in the interest of my franchisees. So I could try and get away with doing that via Zoom, but again, I don't think it has the personal effect, and it's important. So I'll spend half my Saturday this Saturday heading to Bendigo and back to make sure that I give everything that I can give as part of my business. So again, the harder you work, the more you get out of it, and probably the flexibility as well. No one's telling you to go to work, and no one's telling you to come home from work. And I've got my son who's 19, my daughter who's 17, and my partner's 2 children who are 6 and 9, Addie and Audrey, so Bailey and Aisha. It gives me good flexibility to work around them, which, the days of me having to sort of be in a boardroom or, get up. I spent many a year over my journey having to get up at 4:30 a.m. on a Monday morning to fly to Sydney every week, and I'd be working interstate all week, and I'd get on a plane at 5:30 on a Friday night, come home. At some stages, coach basketball on a Friday night, and then by the time you got to 1 o'clock on a Sunday, I was concerned about having to pack a bag to go back to Sydney again. So I don't have to do that anymore.
And financially been going well for you as well? You have to say what you've been making, but you've been happy with what return?
Look, I guess from a franchisor perspective, for anyone who's thinking of being a franchisor, again, there's real positives in there that you can sort of branch out. So I manage a large contract for another company. I help Jim out and manage one of his smaller regions. Obviously, I'm helping Jim now with the divisional role and so forth. So there's opportunities for you to branch out outside of your region, just your regions, to do other things. So financially, would I be earning more money, say, than what I was earning working for Jim? Absolutely.
I would hope so.
True.
And I was going to say now, you mentioned the word divisional. So a lot of people outside gyms won't know what a divisional is. So do you want to talk about, you manage the division and just talk about that role?
Yeah, so look, it's very new still. I'm enjoying it. Funnily enough, I just caught up with Jim about 30 minutes ago. We wandered through and we had a chat for 15 minutes. I still learn every day. I'm not an expert. We've got a really good group of franchisors, getting to know people more on a daily basis, which is great. As I said, my region's built on relationships, and that's how I'm trying to build at the divisional role. So effectively, Jim owns the mowing division per se. And he has someone in charge of that division to deal with the day-to-day. Rocky, who's the COO, or Jim is the CEO, I catch up with them pretty much on a weekly basis. Like be 1 or 2 phone calls on a weekly basis, and I live about 40 minutes from the office, so I wander down pretty much every week. I'm spending the whole day out here today just working and catching up with different departments. So the role is, as I see, the divisional manager. So again, it's the liaise at a higher level. So liaise with the franchisor group, sort of on one side, and then you're sort of an intermediate, for want of a better term, between there and the office. So whether it's the documents team, Jim himself, Rocky, yourself, because Joel, you look after all the social media, so all the different department heads, and working on them, again, just to build culture amongst the group, and just get better outcomes across all the departments across the group to get a better outcome for the division.
And where do you see the division going over the next 5 years?
Oh, it's a really good question without notice. Look, I think the focus has to be on continuing to grow the brand. So I think, Jim's Mowing has wonderful brand recognition. I still think, as you and I talk about, there's opportunities to do things differently. And funnily enough, I'm going to send you an email in about an hour just around brand and advertising. So I think the mowing, there's lots of people out there doing mowing now, gardening and so forth. So I think the focus needs to be on continuing to grow the brand presence, especially probably to the north and to the west of Australia. And continuing to grow work for our franchisees. We want to grow our franchisee numbers, there's no doubt about that. And as I say, I think good culture and good franchisors will continue to do that. But I think ideally what we want to do from a brand perspective is continue to grow the brand and work for our franchisees.
Yeah, I think Jim always says it, but I'm a big believer on it too, is just the customer experience as well.
Yeah,
when I hear from people who've had a bad experience with a franchisee, like I've had people at expos come up to me as they see on gyms and tell me they've had a bad experience with a franchisee, and it just brings your heart down because you think that's someone who's never going to use this for anything else, and we're sort of saying all this stuff about customer service and they have a bad experience. So really making sure franchisees do the right things, probably where we need to, with Jim's jobs, hopefully when it comes in place, will definitely help.
Yeah, so look, I've parted ways with franchisees in my region over differences over
customer service. That's a good thing to point out. That's a good thing to say. So do you want to maybe just talk real quickly about that?
I'll be careful.
Not about the particular franchisees, but I'm saying about customer service standards. So what should a franchisee expect when they come in?
I'll talk loosely about it. So a good example, when I'm going back a couple of years now, it'd probably be 2 to 3 years ago, I had a reasonably new franchisee. We spoke every week as a minimum. I would talk about, again, values, honesty, integrity, how we take clients. He'd mistreated an elderly client who was a female. It didn't sit well with me. We'd had multiple conversations about it. He'd gone out and tried to rectify the job, but then recharge the client again, which, again, is not how I want people to do business, especially if there's an issue. Yeah. So we had a lot of conversations about it. I sort of sat there on a probably Tuesday, Wednesday night brooding and thinking about it. And I texted him at 6 a.m. the next morning. It was the middle of winter in Ballarat, probably about 4 degrees, and asked him where he was going to be that morning. And he told me where he was going to be. So I got in the car at 6:30 and drove to Ballarat, met him face to face out at the property, and we talked through it again. And at the end of the day, he made the decision 48 hours later that it probably wasn't for him and he was going to move on. And I was comfortable with that decision because I really, really do value customer experience.
Yeah, I think anyone who knows, if they're thinking about listening to you and coming to your region, obviously customer service is, even though everyone says it is, but it's really strict in gyms. So do you want to talk about how the franchisor then gets involved? Because you obviously get involved in complaints, and I think that it's not a nice area for franchisors, and it's not a positive thing to do with, but it's really, really important. So
yeah, look, it can vary greatly. Like I had one the other. I must admit, the regions that I look after. So I've got Western Vic and Melbourne Southwest. My guys are actually really good. We generally, as a rule of thumb, touch wood, don't have too many complaints. and I look after another smaller region for Jim, sort of in the east and the peninsula of Melbourne. And again, we actually brought it up on one of our calls the other day and congratulated the guys. I think we'd had like 2 complaints across 60 blokes in a couple of months. So they've been really good. And they were low end, just communication issues, which we'd sorted out. But so generally, if they're communication issues, we'll encourage the franchisees just to work on their communication, get back in touch with the client. We'll help them close that out. Occasionally, and again, they're rare, it might be a bigger ticket one. So I had one the other day, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, where I had to get involved at a higher level. It was a more significant job. Job was about a $7,000 job. So again, I went to a team leader in the area, I won't say which area, in the area, and asked that team leader, who was a qualified landscaper, to go out and actually have a look at the job. And I've worked with him to come up with a resolution now with the client. Jim's been wonderful. He's helped me out. We've utilised the warranty fund, which is something that we have there on the side, to make sure at the end of the day that customer is pleased and satisfied.
Now, where do you see, because you coach so many franchisees, where do franchisees get stuck in their business? Where do you find you help them the most?
Where do they get stuck?
Is it because they want to maybe scale, or they don't know how to grow their business, or where do you find the most?
Well, it's an interesting. So first point is, I used to talk at training, so it's different for everybody. I think scaling their business, it is all consuming. If you're running a business as a franchisor or a franchisee, running your own business, at times people just get caught out with the fact that, again, some people come into it, no matter how many times it's talked about, thinking it's probably more of an employee role. It's not.
Yeah.
Like, if you run your own business, franchisee, franchisor, or lots of other people that I've spoken to in the business world, I just spent 4 days in Perth, and I had meetings in Perth with just different people in the mowing division and catching up. And every day that I was in Perth, I'd travel around with my partner and her mother, and I had my laptop in the back of the car. And every time there was a window, I'd pull over and, they'd wander off and do something, and I'd do some work. So it is all consuming.
And you're driving it, but you've got to drive it as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's the thing where probably at times, if you haven't got that hunger, and that proactive nature and willingness to drive it, it probably won't be as successful as what you want it to be.
Okay.
And then there comes into that, then some guys get stuck in a bit of a cycle of negativity, for want of a better word, but struggle to pull themselves out of that.
Well, how do you help pull them out of it then? What do you sit down and do a business plan, or how do you
so it's business plan, it's guidance. I know you assisted me with one of my franchisees the other day, so and again, I can't, that's the difference. As a franchisor, I can give guidance. No one's obligated, I'm not their boss. So they don't have to do what I'm asking them to do. I can give them all the pointers in the world. But at the end of the day, so my job is there to give advice, to mentor and give guidance. It's up to franchisees whether they choose to accept that or go and do things their own way.
You're pretty good with that, because I know, because we get emails, you ask me questions or talk to this person, so you're really good at connecting the franchisee with who they need to get to as well, which I think is important. Yeah,
so look, I'm not technically based. I've never been a franchisee, so yes, if there's something on a technical level, I always put them in touch with a senior person to give them. As I said, when new guys start, generally as a rule of thumb, I'll try and put them in touch with a mentor who's got the skill set, and then just on a day-to-day, like I said, I'll always incorporate myself, someone like you, or more senior franchisees. Like I've got franchisees in, say hypothetically, historically, that have been in Mildura that have mentors from Bendigo.
Yeah.
And they've also got a mentor in Mildura. They've got me. They've got guidance. Whether they choose to take that or utilise those resources, that's completely up to them.
And what's a recent good success story in your region? The guy come for sale?
Ooh, lots of different ones. James would be a good one. Gav
Piazza?
Gav Piazza, yeah. James Lindsay.
Well, people listen to Gav's interview.
Ian Field, I'll probably... James Lindsay, Ian Field would be 2 quick ones. Look, Ian's been with me now for probably 16 months. So, December of 23. Started, early December 23. It's hot, summer. We hadn't had anyone. He's down in Portland. So we'd had a couple of, in my time, we'd had, Brad Holman was a lovely guy, but he was a full-time policeman down in Portland, and he used to do it. He worked nights, so he did Jim's mowing during the day for his mental health, just to do something different. When we came out of COVID, between family, gyms and the police force, it was too much, so he parted ways. We had a gentleman who worked from Warrnambool, went down for a short period. That didn't work for a range of reasons. So we really hadn't had a full-time success story in my time in Portland. So yeah, Ian's been wonderful. So again, engages, uses social media, great communication skills, driven, hungry, works the community well, liaises with larger organisations. So he's been a wonderful success story. James Lindsay. So James is a good one. James started when I started. I had a chap called Terry who was working in Daylesford. I think Terry had been trying to sell his business under the previous franchisor for a fair while, I'll say. And he wasn't working it full-time. He was only working on a part-time basis. In the end, it had dwindled down to about 13 clients.
Right.
So James bought that business off of Terry at 13 clients. We've probably been there now for about 2.5 plus years. So James has already sold a split. So he bought Daylesford and Trentham. James has already sold a split with about 40 clients in Trentham, and Ash has bought that probably 6 months ago, and he's doing really well. James has still got 120 clients, and he's looking to sell another split in Daylesford. So considering it was a bit of an unknown. I hadn't had anyone who'd been in there on a full-time basis. You think, well, maybe there's an independent there, or maybe there's not a market for it in Daylesford. But yeah, James has done a sterling job. And again, hungry, efficient, great communication skills, good person, good morals, and very successful. So that'd be two that would leap to mind, but I could talk about this. I was going to say, I could sit here and talk.
I know, there'd be a heap of them, because I met him through training. We're lucky enough to interview him, like Gavin we had on the podcast, ripping fella as well.
Gavin's done really well, Sharon's done really well.
Is it that to you? Is it just attitude? Is it just really like attitude and proactive attitude, or what is it? Like, is it just an intangible thing, or is it just mindset? Or what is it?
It is. You have to have a level of business now.
Yeah.
So business acumen is probably a better way of putting it. So solid business acumen, as I said, it's not for everybody. Proactiveness, hunger, great communication skills. If you can't communicate, you need to be able to use social media. And it's not one thing. So all those things that we could sit here and talk about all come together to form what forms a good franchisee. So you might be reasonable with social media. You might have a good moral compass. But if you're not proactive and you can't communicate verbally with clients, you won't be successful. So it's a mixture of different things. And if you pull all that together, generally it works out quite well.
Now, services for the people in your division, what can they do? What are they? Because I'm talking to some guys today with qualified landscapers and stuff coming through training. What can they do? What can you do in gym?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing that I'll say there is you don't have to do all of them. So I'm going to reel off a heap of services now. So again, to your point, if you're a franchisee and you're coming on board, you don't have to do landscaping. So landscaping is there, and I was just chatting with John Wiles before about a job that's come through, a large landscaping job, and one of my franchisees in Melbourne Southwest texted me before and picked up a large landscaping job. He can't do the bobcat work, but I've put him into. We're going to work together now to put him in touch with someone for bobcat work to blend in and do the job. So at a high level, landscaping, irrigation work, obviously mowing, ride-on mowing, push mowing, weeding, pruning, hedging. I'm going to forget a few here. Rubbish removal, green waste, hard waste, slashing, gutter cleaning, first story. Need your tickets to do two-story gutter cleaning, but it is there as an option. That's a flavour, and I'm sure I've missed a few off the top of my head.
You've done well. I think it's pretty much all of them. I'm trying to think of the service codes. I don't think you missed anything there.
Hedging, pruning, did I say?
No, you got everything.
I think I got them.
And there's obviously those other jobs which customers might ask them for as well.
I think that's a really good point, Joel. So we talk about the fact that, to be honest, in my region, if you want to come and just mow lawns, you probably won't be successful.
Yeah.
And that's been a great learning for me over the last 4 years, where I've sort of thought, you need to be more broad in what you want to do than just that. So when you walk onto a customer's property, if a customer rings you and says, I want my front and back lawn mowed, great. But as soon as you set foot onto their property, you are there to be a manager of their outdoor space. So you need to be looking at the gutters. Can I do the gutter? So when you leave, you want to give them a quote for their mowing, but you also want to give them 4 more quotes at the bottom to say, whilst I'm here, I'm happy to do your gutter cleaning. You notice that it's fire season and you've got some long grass out the back that needs to be slashed. You've got a massive pile of rubbish. It's snake season. Do you need that removed? So that's the thing that you want to go in with one job, quote for. And a lot of the time, clients, in a nice way, won't realise that they need things done until you actually point that out to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the headspace that you want from franchisees.
And a lot of the time, they don't know you can do that as well, because a lot of the time they limit it to the name on the shirt. So just by pointing that out to them that you can do it, that's a really big key.
Yep.
And I was going to say as well, with you mentioned a term before, which we know is split. So the franchisee who had those customers and sold it as a split, can you just explain to people what that opportunity is?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good example right now. Yeah, so we'll use James. That's a good example. It's on the market. So James currently owns all of Dalesford. He's built that up now to about 120. I think he's pushing towards 130 clients.
Massive business.
Yeah, so that's a two. And again, he's getting to a point now. So heading to the next spring, James is looking at that saying, oh, I can't pretty much do any more work than what I'm currently doing now. Yeah. So we get to the problem he's going to have if we get to August of this year, late August, and the work really starts to flow in. He won't be able to take lead. So that's not what we want as a business, because all that work will start to go unserviced. I don't have anyone else in that area that can take it. So what James is looking at is saying, I'm happy to sell 30, 40, 50, probably 60 of those clients as a split. So he will split off part of his territory, a good chunk. It'll be at least 1,500 houses in my region. And he will, whatever suits the budget, for their incoming prospect, we will include X amount of clients in that to package that up into a business. Yeah. And then James will act as a second mentor to myself to that person.
It's a great deal. It's a great option for anyone looking in the gyms. I think it's buying a split if you can, or buying a customer base can really help alleviate some of that pressure, I guess.
Yeah, look, some people come in and are really keen to start vacants. So vacant is no clients. I actually haven't got any on the market in in Western Victoria right now. But yes, I did back in the day. But yes, it's a certain sort of person that will want to buy, keen to start with nothing. You pay for work guarantee in there. But yes, to take some, stress is the right word, away at the start. You're starting with clients. A lot of people will look to do that as well, whether it's a resale or whether it's a split.
And as an industry as well, because I think now, like AI, like I'm hearing AI every day is going to do this, take job in this. I think the home services industry, especially gyms, mowing, gardening, and other gyms divisions, is sort of, if I'm a corporate now, I'm really sort of looking at these sorts of things as, hey, I need to maybe make the shift into these sort of things. But what do you think about that? Because I spend a lot of time listening to AI stuff all the time and seeing how that accelerates, and the corporates next 5 to 3 years with agents going to be able to do a lot of their jobs. I think it's a prime time for people to maybe...
Yeah, look, I think, as I said, it's a growing industry, it's a growing sector, franchisees in the main. And as I said, it's not suited for everybody. So we're never going to have 100% of our franchisees, as much as we'd love to, being successful. But, in the absolute strong percentile, I would say the bulk of the franchisees across the group are doing really well. It's funny, I read a quote the other day just around AI saying at the end of the day, in the next 2 years, is the bulk of, there's going to be far more people lose their job due to laziness and lack of proactiveness than AI. So I probably tend to agree with that. I'm not close enough to it. But look, as I said, it's a great sector to be involved in, and one that I'd encourage people. Like I've got people from all walks of life across the regions I look after, corporate management, service industry, lots of guys that have driven trucks, lots of guys that have been involved in the supermarkets over the years, and that's all different walks of life are currently franchisees across the group.
Now, do you think there's a bit of a misconception about doing gyms mowing in terms of income potential? Because I think there definitely is. People don't realise what you can do if you really put your mind to it and you work really hard. And in terms of the income, you can definitely replace your corporate income, plus have that flexibility and be outside and...
You can, but again, I like to manage expectations. So yes, you can. There are guys out there that are success stories for different reasons, and I'd be keen for you to get them on and they can talk to that. But yes, there are definitely the opportunity that if you are proactive enough, you work hard enough, and you're hungry enough, that you can build a very, very solid income. But again, in my region, we aim to be consistent. I had someone ring up the other day and just sort of say, I'm still in discussions with the person, so I won't say who, who's in the corporate world, and he's on over 200 grand a year, and he sort of said, look, I want more of a work-life balance, but I'm happy to do it, but I want more of a work-life balance, but I kind of need to maintain the money that he's on. So we're sort of still in the process of talking through that. So, but yes, the opportunity is there, but again, it can come down to the individual.
Absolutely. And I was going to say as well, with the fees, obviously, for those who don't know, it's a flat fee structure, because it's a big comment I always see, gym takes 40%, 50%. You don't take that, obviously, it's far less than that. I do have a Western Victoria page which you put some content on, and our advertising company, and I do get on a sporadic basis and just have a look at some of the commentary sometimes. And
does
it blow your mind how much?
It does beg a
lot. We talk about it so much openly, like Jim every day on TikTok saying we don't take 50%, we don't take 40%.
I was going to say it does beg. I mentioned it to Christy the other day that it just beggars belief at times. Some of the stuff that I see written on there, which is just so inaccurate. So yes, no, Jim does not take a percentage of your income. Your fees are reasonably fixed. The only variable in your fees are your lead fees. So in a time like spring, if you're taking a heap of work, Yes, your fees will go up by probably maybe $100, $150 a month, but you're taking a lot more work. So what needs to work there is, if you're taking a lot of work, yes, you want to be probably working 6 days a week. So if you're taking a lot of leads, and I mean a lot, you're not meant to be working 3.5 days a week. You want to be working a lot, unless you're making really, really good money. Good, all power to you on those 3.5 days. But in principle, if you're taking a lot of leads, then yes, you would probably be working a 6 day week.
The other one I see all the time is lead fees. You probably see it as well. People just get confused about lead fees. They don't understand. They think I've got to pay a fee even if I don't get the job. Like that sounds crazy to people. But can you just talk about the income potential from a lead fee? Like if you convert that customer into a job, or maybe the lead fee concept in general? Because I think a lot of people don't get it, and they think it's there purely just to make money, which it's not.
No, so look, it's very variable. So at the end of the day, Jim wants franchisees to value leads. And my understanding is that in the past, and I mean a long time ago, that there wasn't a lead fee, and Jim didn't believe that people valued the leads. And I can understand that. So the lead fee of around sort of, depending on what region, I think it's around sort of $16, $18, $19 for a lead. So first and foremost, that is there to encourage franchisees to value the lead, which I think it's absolutely there for the right reason. Look, you can pay $19 and get a lead. It might be a $100 mow, and it'll be a repeat mow. That's great. You might get a one-off mow, but again, that's your customer for life. So if that customer rings back 3 months later to the call center and says, "I need my gutters done now for $200, $300, $400," that lead automatically goes back to you at no cost. And then I could sit here and regale you with stories over and over. Like one of the guys down on the peninsula got a lead, not long ago, and it ended up being like 15 apartments on a block. Only paid $18 for it.
Yes, I've heard some stories.
It's a $1,000 lead sort of every 6 weeks. So it's not bad for $18.
Well, it's funny. We had I implore anyone. There's a guy called Mike Andes from America. He's a massive YouTuber.
Know him, yep.
And he came out and talked about our lead fees and just how cheap it was. And he did the whole marketing funnel thing and showed the franchisees. And I think we underestimate how good the deal is with the marketing fee and the lead fee, because compared to other franchises in Australia and overseas, where it's very rarely cheap compared to what value you get. So Mike Andes on YouTube actually goes and talks about the gym's lead fees. It's a really good watch. I think it's a great video to watch if you're in the industry. But I was going to say as well, Matt, personally, you mentioned your family before. You're a big footy man. So if people come into your region, who do you want them to support as a prerequisite?
From a football perspective?
Yeah, football perspective.
Oh, look, I'm a Carlton supporter, so we have lots of jokes. I got a wonderful text message the other day from Mark Hansen when Carlton beat Geelong straight away at the final siren. I got a text message come through, and I looked down, and Mark said, "Well done, mate." So we had a lot of fun over the region. Strangely enough, we actually do have a fair few Carlton supporters around the region. A few of us are on a group chat together.
Oh, really?
So it goes really well, or it goes very quiet. So depending on what goes on, but no, we have a bit of fun with it.
Is that why you got the Carlton coloured Jim's Mowing shirt as well?
I do. I've actually got it on my key ring as well, wherever it is. I think it's over there. So no, I carry it around. So you never know. Like I said, 4 of the last 5, we can beat Sydney this week. Fingers crossed.
Well, Matt, thank you very much for your time today. I thought it'd be great to get you in because you're in the head office all the time. It'd be great for franchisees to know, and also people thinking about gyms, the quality people that we have leading the division and involved in the organisation. You're just one of many. There's a lot of franchisors who've got similar backgrounds and stuff like that. So I think it's really important to give you guys a bit of a shout out as well. And if you are interested in Western Victoria, South Melbourne,
Southwest
Melbourne as well, Matt's your man. So please feel free to reach out directly on 131546 or jimsmowing.com.au. Thank you for your time today, Matt.
Appreciate your time, Joel. Thank you.